So welcome back. Some of you, namely the MBAs of this year, have already seen Pierre, Olivier, and Maurice, among others professors, last week for the final seminar, Business at the Intersection. But most of you have not seen them for a while now. And this is one of the gifts we wanted to offer you today, a little piece of the MBA spirit as you knew it, here for you, especially today. So Pierre Casse is going to start, of course, as you know, on leadership. After Pierre, we will welcome Maurice on strategic issues, and then Olivier Tabatoni for financial issues, what is challenging today in the business world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carola. Thank you. So in other words, what we're going to do is to, throw a few ideas at you, put a few ideas on the table, and then we're going to react and eventually challenge each other, challenge you, and hopefully you will challenge us back. All right, that's the main idea until more or less 12:15 this morning. So let's make the process as interactive and exciting as possible, as you know. If I had to, you see a title there, Trans Leadership, of my short presentation to you. You'll see also the subtitle. If I had to pick up following the presentation this morning, especially after what Robert said about the background, the history of the program, I would say that we could use another title, which would be From Obsolescence to Effervescence. All right. Yeah, good cru, good cru. Very good. So here we are, my dear friends, with a keyword on the screen, and the keyword is obviously perspicacity. All right? Think about you. How good are you at being perspicace? All right? How good are you at seeing what other people don't see? How good are you at, looking at the foggy situation that we are all in and seeing what's going on and seeing what the key elements of the changing situations are and seeing basically what the trends are. That's what perspicacity is all about. It's the ability to detect in a very obscure situation, a very foggy environment, what's critical, what's coming up, all right, and what the new trends are. That's why, by the way, I did call my presentation Trans Leadership. And basically, leading by trends would mean the following. Leading by trends, keep in mind, please, again, that I was used to say in the past, I was thinking about listening to you in the morning, if I had to think about, to say about what's different today from yesterday in terms of the teaching of leadership. I think yesterday I was used to say, you don't have to believe what I say, all right? I don't have the truth. And it's up to you to pick up out of what I'm going to say on leadership, what you think is right and what not so right, maybe. I would change today. Today I would love to say, in terms of what I'm going to say, there are maybe 10% of outstanding ideas. There are maybe 70% of average ideas, all right, and maybe 20% of very dangerous ideas that you have to be very careful with. All right, so keep that in mind, please. Here we go. All right. Yes, there are trends out there that you, my friends, as leaders, you have to get rid of. In other words, there are things happening in the world today, in the business world, in the corporate world, that are not very good. And I'm going to elaborate on that in a minute, okay? But the role of the leaders, especially the leaders of the future, I like what Robert said, is the best of today to the best of the future. Yes, that's a good way, all right? So there are trends that you have to fight against. There are trends that you have to get rid of, all right? Because they are destroying us. Because it's not good for you, for me, and for anybody around. There are trends that you have to fight for. There are good trends around, all right, that eventually we have to support because they're healthy, because they're effective, because they do contribute to the quality of life in our organizations and societies. And finally, there are the trends that don't exist yet. And that's the beauty of leadership eventually, is the ability to invent what doesn't exist yet and to really fight for it and make it happen. So let me go step by step, if you don't mind, and I'll give you some illustration of what I mean by those three things. Trans leadership. Well, we don't have much time, actually, on some of the trends that exist around. We have to move fast because they are destroying us in a tremendous way and in a dramatic way, and therefore we have to really go and do something quickly about those. Corruption, yes. Now, by the way, corruption has always been around, all right? We're not going to get rid of corruption just overnight. My perception is that we are, it's part of human nature. All right, we are, corruptible. We can be corrupted. Anybody in this room, anybody can be corrupted. Power corrupts, we know that. I'm not going to elaborate too much on this. But what I would like to say a few words about is the last words, especially the corruption of the mind. And what I mean by that, and some people in this room already know that, and I feel strongly about that, my experience working in different organizations, all right, is that many people in the corporate world, public and private sectors, are not living their lives, they are living other people's lives. And that's a form of corruption. And the question I would like to raise this morning, my dear friends, especially those who are coming from 2002, 2003, 2004, all right, and sitting in this room, is are you living your life or are you living somebody else's life? All right, and you know what some people say, that life is too short to be miserable, life is too short to be small, life is too short to live anybody else's life. Are you living your life according to your own values, or are you living your life according to the values of your manager, or some people still call them boss, by the way, all of your bosses? If you are living that life, then you're not living your real life. And by the way, again, let me say it again, if you believe in reincarnation, it's okay. You'll have another chance around. If you don't believe in reincarnation, better to make it good the first time around, because this may be the only time around. Next, I am mistrust of leadership. There is indeed a kind of a major leadership issue here, as you know. The trust is not quite around. You cannot open your newspaper or watch a TV show today without finding a scandal somewhere with top leaders in the corporate world or in governments doing things that are absolutely, totally, all right, irresponsible and unacceptable. And what I like to talk about now in my leadership seminars is, okay, we talk about bottom-up loyalty. What about top-down loyalty? What about those people who are making major mistakes at the top of a team, at the top of an organization, business unit and so on, who are basically destroying their teams and organization and who live with a big check, with a big bonus and so on? Where is the top-down loyalty there? There is something wrong. You cannot just say it's bottom-up loyalty and forget about the top-down. It has to go both ways, please. So what about the top-down loyalty? And by the way, you know my line here. I still sign up for that one. All right, is first loyalty in this kind of fast-changing world is to yourself and your family, and not to your organization. All right, you're in charge of yourself. You're in charge of your family. Nobody can guarantee anything today. So be careful. Check your options. This is, my friends, this is killing us. All right, if I had to pull some of the pieces together, I would say that what's dreadful, really dreadful in many organizations is the combination of corruption and incompetence. When I go around and work as a consultant in many organizations for the last, let's say, 5 years, I'm amazed to see that so many people are in the wrong position in their organization, in the corporate world. All right, and not only they don't enjoy their leadership roles in the organizations, but not only they don't contribute to the success of the organization and to the welfare of the people around, but they destroy. They're destructive. All right, they are corrupted and incompetent. When you have a combination of those two, frankly, you're in deep trouble. All right, and the critical issue is the following: when you see that at the top of your business unit, the top of your division, the top of department, top organization, people are not doing what they should do. They are not maybe very competent. All right, then something is very wrong, and you have to decide, what am I going to do with this? Now, the flip side of this is the following. All right, this is what we call leading by ignorance. You know that, which is sometimes the people, it's quite all right for the leaders not to know something. Actually, it's very good not to know something. That's what we call leading by ignorance. Ignorance can be very good. All right, you go to your boss and you say we have a problem, and the boss's reaction, the manager's reaction is, all right, what do we do? And you say, you're your boss, you're the manager, you're going to tell me what we're going to do. And you're in the key position here, you are making big money to tell me what to do. And the manager is going to say, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, I don't know. What do you think? And by doing that, eventually the manager is giving a chance to the people to learn how to identify problems but also come up with solutions. Trends to fight for. What are the good ones around? What are the good ones around that I think we should feel good about and maybe contribute to make sure that they will remain around and eventually become better and better? It requires, by the way, energy. For those who have attended the seminar with Paul Claudel, you know what we mean by that. VQ. V like? Yeah. Vitality. What did you say again? Vitality. The energy, the energy level. We need energy. This is very important, as you know. So here they are. Yes. I know that Maurice is not going to like this one. All right. But it's quite all right. All right. If you have perspicacity, sniffing around, all right, and seeing the trends and seeing what's good and maybe not so good, all right, using your intuition, using your hunches, all right, your guesses and so on, you can basically, in a very fast-changing world, you cannot plan anything anymore. You cannot anticipate anything anymore. So there are two things that we can do as leaders. Number one is pick up the opportunities that you can see around. All right. If you see that somebody is doing something good there in the organization or in the business, on the marketplace, somebody is doing something good there, just as the Chinese people say, borrow it, go for it, steal it. That's what they do. And it's working quite well. So you become opportunistic in a way. You look at what the good things are around and you go with the me too, all right, drive in a way. But there is something else here too, which is to create the opportunities. Right? The good thing about the first one, the first drive, which is to pick up the opportunities around and just take advantage of opportunities, is that you reduce the cost. They're going to invest, they're going to prepare, they're going to come up with the ideas, and you just pick up the train, get in the train when the train is rolling already. Next is, I love this one. I love this one. Yes, there is no question that most academics are still talking about empowerment and most leaders are not doing it. All right? It's quite true that in many organizations, when I go around and ask people, all right, do you believe in empowerment? Yes. Is empowerment in the organization? Yes. Do you think that it's very effective? Yes. Do you do it? Yes. Then you check around and what you realize is that it's not happening. And it's basically on trust. There is two things that you have to keep in mind with empowerment. The first one is that it's a big debate that I have with some of my colleagues. Most of my colleagues say that you can empower people, you can give them the authority and the power to do something on their own. Empowerment is to implement your ideas, not anybody else's idea, your ideas. But you cannot empower people with responsibility. The responsibility and the accountability stay with you. I disagree. The real empowerment is to give everything to people, including the responsibility. If they succeed, there's something big in it for them. If they fail, it's their skin, it's their life. All right, and that's the way it should be. But it's reverse empowerment. What do we see in many organizations today, and not just the high-tech companies? What we see is that people telling their managers, this is what you have to do. Huh? Dear boss, I'm going to empower you. Dear manager, you are going to have to do A, B, C. As if you don't do A, B, C, I cannot do my job properly, so don't expect too much from me. Reverse empowerment. The nice thing is that now people are giving the power to the people with the key positions. By and large, people who are quite a bit stiff, at least regarding innovation, by the way. Empowerment, reverse. Making the leaders accountable, absolutely, that's absolutely critical. All right, we're dying for that. You can almost destroy your country, you can destroy your organization, and you can still leave with a big bonus. Something is not quite right. Something is not decent in this, and we have to basically fight for that. All right, trends to create. Hey, what about that one? Well, we have to reinvent ourselves, no question about it, which is not that easy, as we know, because we get into boxes, and we like to stay in our boxes. So we have to get out of the boxes, and we have to start to learn, my friends, we have to start to learn to live without boxes. All right? It's not a question of getting out of the box, it's a question of living without boxes. All right? Because boxes are basically constraints. Yes, mind expansion in the working place. All right? We have to transform the organization. I keep saying that organization exists because of the Industrial Revolution. We had to get the people in the same space at the same time because they had to come together to invent, produce, and sell the goods and services. This is over. It's a plug-and-play world today. So you don't need the people to get together. So if we want to keep a minimum of organization around, if you want to keep the idea of organizing people together in the same space at the same time, we're going to transform, we're going to have to reinvent, we're going to have to really change the very purpose of the organizations. And one way to do it is to make sure that when people get together, all right, to talk about some issues, they also experience what I call the mind expansion, that they're getting a fair chance to develop themselves. All right. En passant and quickly, you do know that my line there is still the same that 2 years ago. I didn't say that 5 years ago, but 2 years ago, that if you are over 35, forget about transforming yourself. Huh? It
starts again at 65.
wishful thinking, my friend. 35, what I'm saying here, and I see this in so many organizations still today, at a certain point in time, it's much more powerful to build on the strengths of the individuals than to spend time and energy coping with the weaknesses. Build on your strengths, my friend. If you're over 35, live your life around your good strengths. And weaknesses, forget it. Hey, what about that one? What about that one? My dear friends, there is a strong need in many organizations to lead by taste. All right? And when I discuss this with MBAs, executive MBAs or executives and so on, they don't know what I'm talking about. What do you mean by taste? Well, think about it. Think about gastronomy, think about fashion and so on. What is taste? Taste basically means two things, that it's good and it's beautiful. All right? And frankly, I don't see many managers and many leaders managing and leading their teams and organizations with taste. All right? With a sense of beauty and a sense of goodness. So let's lead. I know you're laughing. He's cracking up. Look at him. He's cracking up. Yeah.
We all love it.
Taste. I see so many people in many corporations, who are just brutal people. You know, it's amazing what they do to people in the corporate world. As Ken said, by the way, a few days ago. Finally, let's focus on sustainable leadership. And sustainable leadership is basically the leadership that will be around today, all right, which is not going to get obsolete, at least for a big time, because it's healthy, because it's effective, because it is acceptable in terms of our basic values as human beings, as men and women living on this planet. What I would like to do, that requires, by the way, that requires something critical, basically new ideas. All right, and I would like to show you a short video, all right, of the CEO of a big company in the UK. The name of the senior executive CEO is Sir John Igati. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes is going to talk about ideas. Listen to him. I feel strongly about what he's going to say in a few minutes, okay? I feel strongly that that's the way to go. That's what we all in this room have to do to really move on and improve, at least a little bit, the world that we're in today. So here we go.
How do you judge it? How do you view it? And how do you kind of say this is better than that? And it was funny enough, it was some time ago I was asked to give a speech on this very subject, and someone said, I would like you to give a talk on what you look for in great ideas. And I hadn't really thought about it. It was just an instinctive thing. I just instinctively knew what I liked and what I didn't like. But I had to kind of now sit down and give a talk on it. And I pondered long and hard about this and thought about the ideas I liked, and I thought about the ideas I had done in my career in advertising and the ideas that our agency was doing. And it was very interesting. I got to a point where I suddenly realised what I really loved about great ideas. And if you just put the next slide up, it was this thing, Sharon, thank you. It was irreverence. Now I've translated that, because I understand in German it's a bit of a problem.
It's good.
Irreverence. For those who speak German, that is possibly a translation. It's a fantastic word in the sense of
Reverence.
it encourages us to question. Why is it we're doing what we're doing? But before I did this, before I kind of went off on my road of kind of, discovering what it was I liked about irreverence, I stood back from that and I thought about it, and I thought it would be very interesting with this to kind of consider, a broader picture. And I often say that I think this is very important. I said I work in advertising, I don't live in advertising. And I think it's very important that you bring your world into the job that you do. People who just live in a certain industry, eat, breathe it, all of that, become very, very boring very quickly. And it's very important that you live in a wider world and you bring that world into what it is that you're doing. And so when I did this, I thought about this, why irreverence? And because I went to art school and studied painting, I had done a little bit of history of art, and I realised that art at one point wasn't about irreverence. As I looked at a broader picture of communicators, I looked at artists. And of course, at one point, art was very much about reverence, not irreverence. And if you go to the next slide, if one went to the Renaissance, the function of Renaissance painters was not to actually be irreverent. The function of Renaissance artists was to revere, was to get people to believe. They were employed by the church, the state, leaders, whoever, who had power, who wanted people to believe in them. So the function of art, the function of communication, was always revere. Believe in this, believe in what I am telling you. But at some point in time, art moved from being reverent to being irreverent. And obviously the reason for that was as society grew and society, more knowledge was kind of more widely available to people, the development of books, people began to question. They began to question the function of the church. They began to question leadership. They began to question attitudes of nationhood. And gradually, into art, crept the concept of irreverence. You suddenly had a situation whereby competing ideas were being presented to people, and they had to kind of make a decision. So all of a sudden, power was no longer at the top and disseminated down, but power was moving down this triangle of people. And in a funny way, if you go to the next slide, this is the kind of world that we're confronted with, the world where there is phenomenal choice, incredible decisions have to be made each day about what do I do, how do I do this, what's my point of view on this subject, to such a point that questioning and becomes a kind of process that we're all involved in. Somebody once said that there is actually more information in a sort of a relative quality Sunday newspaper. There is more information in that newspaper than somebody in the 16th century would have come across in their whole lives. Just kind of an example of how we have this explosion of choice and questioning. So you look at art, and art was at the vanguard of this change, at the vanguard of this kind of questioning. And if you go to the next slide, I mean, the Dada'ists came out because of their horror at the slaughter in the First World War, the way, the leaders of all these nations had just killed and slaughtered millions of people, and they mocked authority. And what they were doing was they were laughing at authority. And this kind of sense of irreverence crept into the society, crept into virtually every facet of society. And your very own, the very own Bauhaus movement, if you go to the next slide, as an example of kind of irreverent design. I mean, the idea of using industrial kind of machine-made products and put them in your home was kind of like a sort of, it really was a kind of change it was an irreverence as far as people at that time were concerned. And of course, it infected, this irreverence affected all facets of communication. And if you go to the example, music was also a part of that change. I mean, jazz was a kind of the voice of downtrodden people. It was their answer to oppression. It was how they kind of answered back to a very oppressive authority. And of course, as we all know, jazz metamorphosed into blues. Blues became rock and roll, and music today is very irreverent. The foundation, virtually, of modern music is challenging this question.
I'm just waiting for one sentence.
So as I say, you can see how art has moved from one where it revered, where it was dictated to how it transmitted information, to kind of becoming irreverent. And as I said, this kind of affected, culture on a very, very broad scale. This irreverence, this becomes a powerful, powerful force. So, from music and then into industrial products, and I've got a next one here. This is a picture of one of the first minis. And what was remarkable about that as a product, a piece of design.
Okay, I wanted to give you a taste of one way to look at the ability to challenge our traditional assumptions, all right, by creating new ideas. All right, you have to challenge what exists. You have, and by doing that, eventually, that's what he called irreverence. Now, what he said later on, by the way, Sir John Igarte is the CEO of a big advertising company, and this is a videotape that we created in the Berlin School of Creative Leadership. It was part of an executive MBA program he came in on. What he said afterwards is that, but we went overboard. You have to be careful with irreverence. If it's irreverence for the sake of irreverence, then it's not good. It has to have a good purpose. It's to challenge for a good purpose. Now, what's good purpose? That's something that Olivier is going to explain to us now.